in interesting times. Today's stories. Climate change activists occupy the Waterloo Bridge in London. Climate activists train in non-violent disobedience. Nuclear fuel finally removed from crippled Japan plant. China blasts Pompeo lies on Venezuela. Venezuelans react after Pompeo's visit to the Colombia border. Scientists unveil the first 3D printed heart with human tissue. The European Union greenlights trade talks with Washington. Plus, we will take you to an adventure as we explore Samoa. Hello everyone, I am Jennifer Polentan, bringing you stories from around the globe, and this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Climate change protesters brought a bridge in London to a standstill on Monday and blocked major roads in the capital, kicking off days of planned civil disobedience events in cities around the world. More than 1,000 people blocked off Waterloo Bridge and laid out trees and potted plants along its length in the protests organized by the campaign group Extinction Rebellion. Campaigners also daubed graffiti and smashed windows at the UK offices of energy giant Royal Dutch Shell, spraying the Extinction Rebellion logo on the walls, along with "Shell kills," "Shame," and "Lies." Police officers detained suspects at the building, while demonstrators held up a banner reading "Fossil fuels are killing us" and placards saying "Wanted for ecocide." Extinction Rebellion started in Britain 5 months ago with the aim of pressing governments and other institutions to declare a climate and ecological emergency. They also want action to halt biodiversity loss, reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2025, and be led by the decision of new citizens' assemblies on climate and ecological justice.
People have been trying to deal with climate change for the past 30, 40 years, and nothing has happened. You know, greenhouse gases have been gradually increasing. And right now, this is what we're left with. We have to shout in people's faces. We have to say, this is bloody well it. Absolutely. There's going to be people sleeping over in the streets, sleeping on the bridges, sleeping on the pavements. We're going to have many people coming down throughout the week as well. So really, it's going to be days long of blockade.
On Waterloo Bridge, demonstrators held up placards reading "Rebel for Life," "We have no planet B," and "Truth, disobey," set up a skateboard ramp, and marched back and forth across the bridge behind a group of drummers. People brought wheelbarrows with them and set up vegetarian food stalls, enjoying their lunch in the sunshine. Many families with children took part in the demonstrations.
Yeah, we realise it's very inconveniencing, but if we don't do this, it will be more than inconvenient. It will be a disaster. Millions of people will die, and the geography of our planet will be completely changed, and the human race will actually find it very difficult to live on it.
It's a rebellion, really. I think it's a great cause, and I think this needs to happen, really, because I think we're at a time where we need to make changes if we want, humanity to continue living happily on Earth.
Protesters also gathered in 4 other London sites: Parliament Square and the major city centre interchanges at Piccadilly Circus, Marble Arch, and Oxford Circus, where people gathered around in a pink boat. An increasing number of people are called for non-violent civil disobedience against climate inaction, but many activists are unsure about what this actually involves and which methods are most effective. Les Désobédients, or the Disobedient Ones, led by Rémi Filiao, organizes workshops to teach people the basics of disobedient actions, including how to deal with the police.
Donc aujourd'hui c'est un atelier, une formation autour de la désobéissance civile non violente. Et donc on essaye de parler justement de violence, de non-violence, de nos limites dans l'action, de qu'est-ce qu'une action non violente Et ensuite, il y aura aussi des jeux de rôle sur justement aller à la rencontre avec notre adversaire. Donc, comment ça se passe dans une action, avec la police par exemple. Donc parfois, bien sûr, on se retrouve avec la police à se faire arrêter par la police, à se retrouver au commissariat. Donc, comment réagir le mieux possible pour que ça se passe le mieux possible avec la police en fait.
Playing the role of a riot cop dispersing a peaceful but illegal sit-in on the steps of France's National Assembly, Axel struggled to dislodge a woman whose arms and legs were enmeshed in a Gordian knot of activists. It was like trying to pull off a limpet off a rock. He couldn't get a grip. Welcome to the Nonviolent Civil Disobedience 101, a one-day basic training for people who have decided they may need to break the law to further a good cause. For most of the 55 people attending a course in Paris on Saturday, the driving concern was climate change and the gathering pace at which Earth species are disappearing. Since October, the world has seen a crescendo of grassroots protests around these issues, especially in Western Europe and North America. High school students in a dozen countries have poured into the streets every Friday to raise the alarm about their climate-blighted future, a movement inspired by 16-year-old Swedish wunderkind Greta Thunberg. On Monday, a loosely knit but well-organized group called Extinction Rebellion, born in Britain, launched a week-long campaign in major cities worldwide, vowing to bring London to a standstill by blocking traffic at Waterloo Bridge, Parliament Square, and other iconic locations. XR, as the group is known, looked to historic examples of civil disobedience, the U.S. civil rights movement, the push for Indian independence, for inspiration. What triggered the sudden uptick in climate activism is unclear, but several participants in the course mentioned a landmark UN science report last fall warned that only a deep change in the way humanity produces and consumes energy can minimize global warming devastation.
La plupart des gens en fait, qui viennent de se former à la désobéissance civile auprès de nous ne sont pas des militants du tout de longue date. En tout cas, ce sont des gens qui ont conscience qu'on arrive à une situation dramatique en termes d'effondrement de la biodiversité, en termes de dérèglement climatique. Agir en signant des pétitions ou en marchant pour le climat, c'est important de le faire, mais que ça ne suffit pas. Et donc, ils souhaitent agir, y compris en prenant des risques, y compris en se faisant arrêter par la police, y compris potentiellement à aller en prison, pour défendre le climat, pour défendre la survie de l'humanité en fait.
Ça crée très vite de l'adrénaline et on y croit très vite. Le jeu de rôle, ça permet vraiment de se mettre en situation et d'imaginer ce que ça peut être, comment on peut réagir. C'est vrai que moi, à un moment, j'ai quand même eu envie de me lever, de dire bon en fait, je suis pas si sûre de ça. Mais après, ça a l'air quand même relativement efficace et bon enfant, et le fait que ce soit non violent, qu'il y ait de la dérision aussi, je trouve ça assez important.
Pour moi, le plus difficile, personnellement, ça va être d'oser désobéir face à la police qui va nous donner des injonctions et qui va nous demander de faire des choses. Ça, j'ai été éduqué à être quelqu'un de sage, j'ai été éduqué à être quelqu'un d'obéissant, et donc oser dire non, ça va être un premier pas. Et je pense que le soutien du groupe va être important.
The operator of Japan's crippled Fukushima power plant on Monday began removing atomic fuel from inside a building housing one of the reactors that melted down in 2011. The delicate operation represents the first time the Tokyo Electric Power Co., or TEPCO, has pulled out fuel rods from inside a highly contaminated building containing the melted down reactor and comes 4 years behind schedule. Due to high radiation levels, technicians use remote-controlled equipment to haul fuel from a storage pool inside the building. Operations were briefly suspended early Monday afternoon after a problem with the equipment removing the fuel, but resumed shortly afterwards. Takahiro Komodo, a TEPCO spokesman, said they finally started this work. They will spend 2 years removing 566 units of fuel from Reactor 3. Komodo said TEPCO removed 4 units as planned on Monday, with workers continuing to remove debris that have fallen inside the pool and other areas. He said factors such as removal of debris and various troubles have caused delays and have caused significant worries to people in the regions and others. TEPCO spokeswoman Yuka Matsubura said engineers have had to contend with clearing earthquake debris inside the building and an array of other technical challenges. She said they had to proceed carefully to remove debris and needed to take measures as dust would waft up and increase radiation readings. TEPCO engineers will not yet attempt to extract molten nuclear fuel that remains deep inside the mangled reactor. This is considered the most difficult part of the massive cleanup operation and is not expected to begin until 2021. In February, TEPCO sent a remote-controlled probe to pick up pebble-sized pieces of the metal fuel in a bid to find out whether the material could be removed. The next step in the painstaking process will be to remove some of the fuel as a sample, which is scheduled to happen by March 2020. The company also faces other difficult challenges, including working out how to dispose of large quantities of contaminated water stored in containers at the plant site. In the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986, reactors 1, 2, and 3 at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant melted down after a deadly earthquake and tsunami that struck Japan in 2011. The tsunami killed around 18,000 people and caused widespread devastation, and the nuclear meltdown forced the evacuation of areas near the plant. Reactors 4 through 6 were offline at the time of the disaster for inspections and did not suffer meltdowns, though Reactor 4 was damaged by an explosion in the days after the tsunami. In December 2014, TEPCO finished removing all 1,535 units of nuclear fuel kept inside the storage pool at Reactor 4. The company aims to conduct the same operations for the buildings for Reactor 1 and 2 by 2023 as part of a 4-decade plan to dismantle the entire Fukushima plant. Japan's government has pushed a reconstruction plan for the surrounding region that includes decontaminating affected areas and removing topsoil. This month, an evacuation order was lifted for part of Okama, one of the 2 towns where the nuclear plant is located. But regions affected by the disaster have struggled to attract back residents who fled in the wake of the meltdown, with many still concerned about radiation despite government assurances. China on Monday lashed out at U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for accusing Beijing of prolonging the crisis in Venezuela, slamming his remarks as, quote, lies. Beijing has been Venezuela's main creditor and remains relations with the government of President Nicolas Maduro, which also enjoys support from Russia. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lu Kang said Pompeo has wantonly slandered China-Latin America relations and that it is Washington that views the region as its backyard.
美国国务卿蓬佩奥对中国和中拉关系肆意诽谤、蓄意挑拨、不负责任、毫无道理，我们对此强烈反对。我们也注意到了蓬佩奥国务卿在委内瑞拉问题上对中方的一些不实的指责。我想说，中国在委内瑞拉问题上，我们的立场是明确的、一贯的。我们维护的是联合国宪章的宗旨和原则，维护的是地区的和平与稳定。需要指出的是呢，一段时间以来，一些美国政客揣着同一个版本，揣着同一个唱本，满世界的污蔑、重伤中国，到处煽风点火、挑拨离间，言行令人不齿。但是呢，谎言它就是谎言，说上1000遍还是谎言。蓬佩奥先生可以休矣。
In a speech in Chile on Friday, Pompeo said Beijing's bankrolling of Maduro's regime has helped precipitate and prolong the crisis in that country. Pompeo wrapped up his 4-nation tour of South America on Sunday with a visit to Cúcuta, a Colombian city bordering Venezuela and crossing point for thousands of Venezuelans who have fled the crisis in their homeland. Pompeo reiterated U.S. calls for Maduro to step down. Washington and dozens of other countries have recognized opposition leader Juan Guaido as the legitimate leader of Venezuela. Coming up, Venezuelans react after Pompeo's visit to the Colombia border. Scientists unveil the first 3D printed heart with human tissue. The European Union greenlights trade talks with Washington. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Venezuela's in Colombia react following U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's visit to the border.
¿Qué le decimos a Pompeo? Que queremos la intervención militar, pero ya, los venezolanos no se aguantan y de paso Colombia también está padeciendo porque esta frontera siempre ha vivido gracias a los venezolanos.
Señor Pompeo, no queremos que ataquen a Venezuela con ningún tipo de arma. Queremos una salida del señor Nicolás Maduro, pero en paz, ¿sí?
Queremos la unión de la intervención en conjunto con los militares que estamos aquí en Colombia y en otros países que están.
Scientists in Israel unveil a 3D print of a heart with human tissue and vessels, calling it a first and major medical breakthrough that advances possibilities for transplants.
This is the first time that the whole cellular heart with blood vessel is printed. And another major breakthrough is that it is printed from the materials of the patient itself. Okay, so the lab developed a technology to print 3D hearts, and it is based on a small biopsy that is taken from a patient, a biopsy of fatty tissue. We have bioinks for the heart and bioinks for the blood vessels, and then we use a 3D printer to print whole hearts with the major blood vessels. These hearts are again made from the patient's own materials and the patient's own cells. The next stage is to mature these hearts in the lab for at least a month to help the cells or teach them how to interact with each other, how to provide electrical signal and to have a synchronous contraction or pumping ability of the heart. And in a year or two, we hope to take these hearts and transplant them in small animal models, in rats or rabbits.
European Union countries on Monday overruled France and gave the final green light for Brussels to open trade talks with Washington as soon as possible. The European Union's 28 member states had struggled for months to agree on a mandate to open transatlantic talks, with some fearing the delay would restart a trade war with President Donald Trump. But European Union ministers meeting in Luxembourg approved the start of new talks with Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström.
The European member states have this morning given their green light to the European Commission to open negotiations for a limited trade agreement with the United States. And I welcome this decision wholeheartedly. We are now ready to move ahead into the next phase of EU-US relations. So I will now get in contact with our American partners with a view to organising a date for the first round as soon as possible.
European Union sources said France voted against the mandate and Belgium abstained during a meeting of European Union ministers in Luxembourg. Pursuing a limited trade deal is a key element of a truce negotiated in July that came close to imploding last week after the U.S. threatened $11 billion in fresh trade tariffs against Europe. Paris voted against the mandate, worried about domestic blowback just months ahead of European elections set for May 23rd to 26. French President Emmanuel Macron has insisted on the U.S. first signing back up to the Paris Climate Accord after Trump dumped the pact in 2017, infuriating Macron. But only a qualified majority of European Union members was needed to support the talks, meaning France's no remained largely symbolic. When we come back, we will take you to an adventure as we explore Samoa. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C., and I am Jennifer Polintan. Did you know that somewhere in the South Pacific, there are two island groups that carry the name Samoa? Some people often mistake one from the other, while others think both are one and the same. Today, Eagle News correspondent Ariane Torres-Suan from our American Samoa Bureau will explain the difference as she highlights several attractions in Samoa.
Formerly known as Western Samoa, this country's official name is the Independent State of Samoa. Located in the South Pacific, it has a population of just over 195,000. Samoa has two large islands, Savaii and Upolu. Both islands have lots of mountains covered with heavy forest and surrounded by coral reefs. The local population is mostly indigenous Samoans, and many of them speak English. The port city of Apia is also the nation's capital, with a population of just under 37,000. Apia is the center of government and trade. Samoa's economy revolves around agriculture, lumber, and tourism. Speaking of tourism, the flight time between Pango, American Samoa, and Apia, Samoa is just about 39 minutes. But, believe it or not, the time difference between independent Samoa and American Samoa is 25 hours. That's right, more than one whole day. That's because the international dateline actually runs right between these two places. And while American Samoa to the east is a U.S. territory, the larger Samoa is an independent republic complete with its own currency. Today, we'll pay a visit to a couple of attractions both on the island of Upolu. On the main South Coast Road, you will find the iconic Tosua Giant Swimming Pool Hole. It is a stunning attraction featuring a unique land formation consisting of two giant holes joined by an ancient lava tube cave. One of the holes has a beautiful 30-meter deep swimming pool hole with clear, cool water accessed by a ladder. This site also offers lush gardens, bay falls with cliff-top views, blowholes, sea arches, and rock pools to explore. The second attraction is the Piula Cave Pool, located along the main East Coast Road and only 45 minutes from the capital city of Apia. It is a beautiful, crystal clear freshwater spring pool filled with different kinds of fish. There is also a cave that originated from an old lava tube. Explore the underwater cave and you will encounter a second cave. The country of Samoa may be small, but it has a lot to offer for visitors. Whether you prefer swimming in the water, climbing up the mountains, or even enjoying the local delicacies, you should include a visit to Samoa in your to-do list. Reporting from Pango in American Samoa, this is Arian Torres Suwan, and I am one with 25. Fa'afetai Telelava.
Thanks, Arian. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Jennifer Polintan, and I am one with 25.